It was a dark age of bloodied steel, when the land was divided and without a king. Out of that darkness rose a legend of the fearsome sorcerer Merlin, mentor to the boy king who would unite all men, and the invincible sword that ruled his kingdom, Excalibur. Discovering 1981's Excalibur is a lot like finding the sword in the stone itself. Release the blade, and you're side by side with Merlin, King Arthur, and the Knights of the Round Table as they forge a kingdom, only to have it torn apart by betrayal and, incest. Okay, and somehow fight once more against the wicked scourge of Morgana and Mordred. From the director of Deliverance, John Boorman, with Nicole Williamson, Nigel Terry, Helen Mirren, Liam Neeson, Gabriel Byrne, Patrick Stewart, and Sherry Lungi. To forge the Duke of Cornwall's allegiance to the savage Uther Pendragon, played by Gabriel Byrne, the mighty Merlin calls on the Lady of the Lake to raise Excalibur, the Sword of Power. With the legendary sword in hand, under Merlin's guidance, Uther offers the Duke of Cornwall a truce over the land they have fought for, and the Duke agrees to enforce the will of King Uther. The peace is short-lived, however, when Uther gets a raging boner for the Duke's wife, Igraine. Pleading for Merlin to use his magic and provide a way for Uther to hook up with Igraine, he gets Merlin to agree, the sorcerer seizing the opportunity.
What issues from your lust shall be mine. Swear it again. I swear it!
The product of Uther's thrusting lust for Igraine is a boy. Merlin takes the boy, and when pursuing him to reclaim the infant, Uther is ambushed by Cornwall's knights. Determined that no one else shall bear Excalibur, with all his rage, this time Uther thrusts his rigid sword into stone. For years and years, the land remained without a king again, while no one could remove the sword from the stone, until one day, a young squire named Arthur suddenly had to find a replacement sword for Kay, whom he had been brought up to believe was his brother.
Merlin the magician brought you to me when you were newly born and bade me raise you as my own.
With Excalibur freed from the stone, Merlin returns to mentor Arthur as he and his knights fight for a kingdom of one land, one king. Along the way, Arthur finds Guinevere, his future wife, and Sir Lancelot, his best knight. However, Merlin also foresees a betrayal in Arthur's future kingdom. At the wedding of King Arthur and Guinevere, the full-grown, older half-sister of Arthur, Morgana of Cornwall, played by the eternally talented and beautiful Helen Mirren, tells Merlin that she remembers when he came and took Arthur away when he was born, and that she is a creature like Merlin. She insists he teach her the ways of the necromancer, as Merlin calls it.
Do you have the sight? Do you see the future?
Sometimes I dream of things that come to pass.
Look now. What do you see? What will be?
I see a castle of silver and gold. Up there.
Oh, that plan is well known. You'll have to do better than that.
When the moment of betrayal finally comes, and Merlin feels his time has come too, a heartbroken Arthur begins to lose those he needs the most: Guinevere, Lancelot, and Merlin. And taking advantage of the chaos and Arthur's weakness and despair is his vengeful sister, Morgana, whose father was betrayed and killed by Arthur's father, Uther. From a wounded Merlin, Morgana learns the powerful charm of making. Go ahead and chant along if you know the words too. And Morgana uses that power to misuse Arthur the way his father did to her mother. It's a disturbing twist that gives birth to evil incarnate, the merciless Mordred. The story continues as Arthur dispatches the knights to quest for the Holy Grail, their last hope to restore Arthur and the kingdom. For years and years they search in vain, with many knights meeting their end. But ultimately, Percival is able to revive the aging Arthur, who is aided by his closest confidants, once again in his final quest to defend the kingdom that was, and his dream of what could be. Needless to say, Excalibur is an epic, and it deserves to be said, a very good one. Though I have seen this movie countless times, when revisiting it for this review, I actually thought I'm really glad I'm watching this again. Nicole Williamson is outstanding as Merlin. Every line he says has an unforgettable delivery, and the whole movie is very quotable. It's one of those movies that I can see years later and still have seemed to remembered every line. And it's not just the lead actors you might find yourself quoting, but some of those almost cartoonish lines in the background.
Keep it, Furians!
Nigel Terry is pretty good as Arthur, especially the older Arthur. Like some of the other actors, he plays his role at different ages. Excalibur has a really effective score by Trevor Jones, and it also uses Carl Orff's O Fortuna, as well as music by Richard Wagner. Along with a lot of great visuals in the film, the music creates some fantastic moments, especially the very end of the movie, which is pretty awesome, and it can even be a little overwhelming if you're baked. Excalibur is a pretty remarkable production. John Boorman, in fact, working on a Merlin film as far back as 1969, which would have called for such a huge budget. At one point he was offered Lord of the Rings instead. Imagine how epic your movie is when a studio thinks Lord of the fucking Rings would be cheaper to do. Admittedly, some of the effects have to seem dated, but overall, the locations, costumes, and a lot of the imagery stand out among the jewels in Excalibur's crown. The aging makeup is actually pretty well done too, with just enough on Arthur, and Lancelot really looking the role of some kind of vagrant wild man of the Round Table, or hobo with a broadsword. I liked this movie more every time I saw it over the years, and I feel like after seeing it again recently, I could watch it 1,000 times more. Now that's a good movie. It's not perfect, but Excalibur is really fucking good. I raise 4.5 swords out of 5 to Excalibur.
I never saw this. That is a wild boast. You lack a knight's humility.
Not a boast, sir, but a curse.